You know, we all love a good mountain view, right? But those beautiful, rugged landscapes pose a huge challenge. A short hop as the crow flies can turn into a long, winding, hours-long journey. But that's exactly where human ingenuity shines, finding ways to do the impossible. So get this, in China's Guizhou province, what used to be a grueling 2-hour drive up and down steep mountain slopes can now be done in just 120 seconds. How? Well, they built a bridge that does something that's kind of hard to believe. To make this happen, engineers didn't just build a bridge over a canyon. They literally split a mountain in half, carving this giant V-shaped cut through solid rock just so the road could lead right onto the Huajiang Canyon Bridge. It is an absolute beast of modern engineering. And let's try to wrap our heads around the scale here. The bridge itself hangs about 2,000 feet above the canyon floor. Yeah, you heard that right. That makes it the highest bridge in the entire world. Okay, for some perspective, picture the Statue of Liberty. Now stack almost 6 of them on top of each other. That's how high up you are when you're driving across this thing. It's just staggering. And it's not just about the height, okay? This thing is long. It stretches 9,500 feet from end to end. That's about 1/3 the height of Mount Everest, just floating in the air. And the whole thing is held up by steel cables and panels that weigh a mind-blowing 22,000 tons. To put that in perspective, that's like 3 Eiffel Towers worth of steel. Okay, but here's the crazy part. You've got this massive, heavy structure that from a distance looks like a thin little ribbon. How do you keep it stable when the winds whipping through that canyon can hit the same speeds as a high-speed train? Well, it all comes down to something called the Venturi effect. See, when wind gets funneled through a tight space like a canyon, it speeds up a lot. And that makes construction incredibly dangerous, a total nightmare. So the engineers didn't just guess. They built a super precise model of the bridge, stuck it in a massive wind tunnel, and created a complete airflow map of the entire canyon. They used all that data to know exactly where the turbulence would be and built the bridge to handle it. And believe it or not, this kind of mind-bending engineering isn't a one-off thing. Let's check out another incredible bridge, the Sidu River Bridge, which needed a completely different and maybe even wilder solution. You want to hear the craziest part of this bridge's story? To get the very first tiny pilot cable across a 5,000-foot gap, they didn't use a helicopter, they didn't use a crane, nope, they fired a rocket. It sounds like something out of a James Bond movie, but it's 100% real-world engineering. But here's the thing. These structures are becoming more than just super efficient ways to get from point A to point B. They're actually turning into massive tourist attractions. So the Huajiang Bridge, it's not just a road. It's basically an amusement park in the sky. It's got a panoramic glass elevator, a 2-story cafe built inside one of the towers, a bungee jumping platform, and it even hosts professional base jumping competitions. Wild. Okay, so that's the high-tech, high-adrenaline side of things. But what about a thrill that's a little more rustic? Let's switch gears from these giant steel structures to crossings that test your nerve in a very, very different way. We're going to take a quick tour of 3 totally different kinds of crossings. A jungle canopy walk high above the trees in Ghana, a terrifyingly narrow path bolted to a cliff in Spain, and a suspension bridge in Pakistan that was famously dangerous before it got a major upgrade. First up, the Huajiang Canopy Walk. This is a whole series of rope bridges swaying over 130 feet up in the jungle canopy. It looks like it's straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. But don't worry, it's all reinforced with steel cables so you can safely live out your Tarzan fantasy. Then you have El Caminito del Rey in Spain. This path was first built for workers at a power plant. It's only about 3 feet wide, and it just hangs there, over 300 feet above the river. It's a dizzying experience for sure, and now it's a world-famous landmark. And finally, we've got the Huajiang Bridge in Pakistan. This bridge used to be infamous. We're talking missing planks, swaying like crazy in the wind, you get the picture. Well, after it was wiped out by a monsoon, it was totally rebuilt with steel cables and solid planks. It went from being a dangerous necessity to a must-see tourist stop. So we've seen 2 completely different worlds of incredible bridges, right? One is all about massive steel and big data. The other is about simple wood and pure nerve. And that kind of brings us to a bigger question. What actually makes a bridge great? On one side, you've got these high-tech Goliaths, problem solved with thousands of tons of steel, wind tunnels, and sensors. And on the other side, you have these human-skilled thrill rides, problem solved with some rope, some wood, and a whole lot of courage. Is the real marvel in the super complex math and the sheer scale of the engineering? Or is it in that simple, terrifying, deeply human act of trusting a narrow path over a huge drop? I think both, in their own way, show this fundamental human drive we have to connect places and to overcome obstacles. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other impossible gaps are we going to figure out how to bridge next?